Thank you. Yeah, if you guys want to step down. So we're on our final ending of the day. I'm going to hand over to Rezina, who's going to tell us a little bit about her journey and also offer some reflections on everything she's heard today.
Did you want me to sit on there or stand?
Stand or sit.
Where do you want?
I want to breathe like you. These streets are mine too. For far too long, the marginalised have had to pay the price of nepotism, classism and racism with their lives. We want to play ball, ride bikes, kick flip and picnic without it leading towards a deterioration of our health. We have pride in our ends, pride in ourselves. But what's pride when your body is seen as collateral damage? What's pride when babies and children and elderly people cannot manage because their right to clean air has been taken? And don't be mistaken, when you leave your home to clear your mind because the air isn't fresh outside, go out there and the gases you inhale have death inside. I want to breathe like you. These streets are mine too. Often we think about the problems we can see, but what about the ones that we can't? The air we breathe, poisoned and polluted with CO2 from cars on busy roads, and tons more from burning waste way too close to homes. Don't I have a right to clean air? Or am I only an heir to polluted roads by residential homes? I want to breathe like you. These streets are mine too. Rich businessmen not paying fines for breaking environmental laws, but it's the black and the poor that have to pay with their lives. When clean air is a luxury, death is the price for those who can't afford it. I want to breathe. I want to breathe. I want to breathe just like you. These streets are mine too.
Over to you, Rezina.
Do I put this in like this? Or... Okay, all right, okay, fine. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay. I know I'm the second last person whose hold is between you and the drinks, so I'm not going to take too much of your time. But I do have some things to say. And according to my watch, it's 34 degrees outside. So yeah, we'll just stay indoors for a bit. So, the title of my talk, as you've seen, is about freedom. And, you know, that has come up quite often today in this room. And I suspect it comes up in the arguments many of you have had to navigate outside of this room. And it's the word that gets deployed most reliably against the kind of work we've all been discussing. The freedom to drive, the freedom to park, the freedom to choose. And I want us to take it seriously, not dismiss it or mock it, because if we don't, we'll keep losing the argument to people who are wielding it far more effectively than they should be able to. Because here is what I've come to believe after 12 years as a Lambeth councillor and 4 years holding the cabinet brief for sustainable Lambeth and clean air. That the people who shout loudest about freedom are very often defending a very particular and very narrow version of it. A freedom that is, in practice, purchased at the expense of everyone else's. The freedom of a child to walk to school without breathing air that's slowly damaging their lungs. That's freedom. The freedom of an elderly man with COPD to sit on a bench outside his front door without being engulfed in exhaust and toxic air, that's freedom. The freedom of a mother with a buggy and heavy shopping to actually use the pavement, that's freedom. And these aren't theoretical policy goals, they're real people in real places. And for too long, the freedom debate has been framed as though only one set of people's freedom counts. And what we're really arguing for, and what this whole conference is about, is a rebalancing, a recognition that freedom in a dense, shared, urban space is not the absence of constraint, it is the fair distribution of possibility. And right now, that distribution is grotesquely unequal. We plant the word freedom back in the center of this argument, and we mean it. And we just mean it for everyone. And listening to the speakers this morning, I just wanted to reflect on a few things I heard. When Professor Scarlett McNally cited that you're more likely to cycle as an 80-year-old in the Netherlands than at any age in the UK, that really struck me. Because that's exactly what we'd been trying to do in Lambeth. Make it easier and normal for people to cycle, to give cyclists the freedom to be able to go about safely. And the public health and the active travel ambition should be inseparable. And there's been a thread through today's sessions that I want to focus on because I think it deserves to be said clearly, and that is the freedom to move is everybody's business. We heard Dr. Amit Patel speak passionately about poorly designed built environment, how it has such a detrimental effect on many in our communities, but especially those with disabilities. Cities, he said, are currently designed for the imaginary average person. And we're not all average. We need to do better. And that includes ensuring that everyone's freedom to move around safely is the starting point of any design and consultation process. And what I recognize from my own experience, and I suspect many of you in this room recognize it too, is that the challenge is almost never the evidence. We have the evidence for what children need from their streets, from their air, from their neighborhoods, and it's overwhelmingly, we've had the evidence for years. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay, right, okay. We heard from Gemma, Christopher, Jasmine, and Lucy, who spoke about the tensions arising from trying to create healthy streets and places for play. Spaces for children shouldn't be contested, but they are. And similar to Gemma, while she was talking about it, I realized that I also grew up on a cul-de-sac in the 1980s, so don't do your sums. And I had so much freedom to play. In fact, Mitcham Common was my playground. But unfortunately, my daughter didn't have that freedom. But I know that the distance between a compelling session at a conference like this and an actual change street in an actual borough is very much longer than the policy documents suggest. And I know this from the inside. I know how long it takes and how much it costs, not just financially, but and to close that distance. So when I took on the cabinet role in Lambeth in 2022, I'd spent years as a social researcher. I thought I understood how change happened. I thought I understood community. I thought I understood evidence. What I had not fully understood was the asymmetry of opposition. The structural fact that the people with the most to lose from change are almost always better resourced to resist it than the people with the most to gain are to demand it. The children whose lungs are developing in polluted air outside school gates do not instruct solicitors. The elderly residents with respiratory conditions do not generate sustained media coverage. They have no equivalent mechanism for making their interests felt. So when we talk about freedom, we also have to talk about whose freedom has a voice in the system and whose does not. The Kennington Oval School Street, which some of you will be seeing tomorrow, taught me this more precisely than any research paper. We had the right evidence base. We had the correct policy framework. And it was only through sustained conversation with local mothers, many of them from minority communities, most of them already walking, that we discovered our solution addressed none of what actually made that street difficult for the people who used it most. So the narrow pavements, the poor lighting, the absence of anywhere to sit with a buggy, it was their knowledge that made it work, not ours. And that's the lesson I carry. The people most directly and continuously affected by a problem are usually its most precise interpreters. A planning culture that treats their knowledge as anecdotal rather than evidential will consistently produce solutions that miss the point. So tomorrow, this conversation moves somewhere that I think is essential and where I wish we'd arrived sooner in Lambeth. We'll hear from people working on independence, not car dependence, streets for play, streets for freedom, and the phrase alone is a reframing. We'll hear about mobility of care, about the multimodal school run, about what cities in Paris and Milan and New York are doing, places that have decided to stop waiting for the politics to become easy before they act. We'll hear from Will Norman, from Chris Boardman, from campaigners and commissioners and local authorities who've made things happen under conditions that were not designed to make things easy. But I want to flag something for tomorrow that I think we need to hold in our minds as we listen. National government announces strategies for active travel, sets targets for modal shift, celebrates award-winning local programmes, and then leaves the councils delivering those programmes entirely without financial, administrative or legal support when they face organised opposition. That gap between the ambition of national policy and the reality of local delivery is where schemes go to die. And it will not close until it is addressed directly and resourced accordingly. So, as we hear tomorrow about what works, and there is real, exciting evidence of what works, I would ask us to hold a parallel question. What does the system need to look like to allow this to scale? Not just what brilliant individuals and exceptional councils have managed against the odds, but what would allow this to become a normal, expected, and structurally supported. So, I don't know how I'm doing with my time, Simon, am I okay? Right, okay. So I started my career doing health research with Black and ethnic minority communities. I came to local politics because I believed that the distance between evidence and action was at least in part a political problem, and that elected representatives who understood both the research and the communities could help choose it, or rather help close it. I didn't find it easy. I found it harder, in some ways, than I had expected. The abuse is real, the asymmetry is real, and the gap between a well-written strategy and a transformed street is very real. But I also find that the appetite was there. The parents who had been campaigning for school streets, years before the council had the political bandwidth to act, they had not given up. That the residents who wanted safer streets, cleaner air, the freedom to walk and wheel and cycle without fear, they had not given up. The task is not to persuade a reluctant public, it's to give a voice to the one that's already there. And there are children in this city who will develop asthma this year that they did not need to develop. There are children who will grow up with a more limited relationship with their own neighbourhood, less independent, less confident, less free than the evidence tells us they should. And that's not inevitable. It's a choice. And the people in this room are among those most best placed to make a different one. Ambition without the means to deliver is not a strategy, it's a wish. But ambition backed by evidence, by community, by honest practitioners who are prepared to say what's actually hard, that's something else entirely. And that's what today has felt like to me. and I cannot wait to see what tomorrow brings. Thank you.